Namaskar. Some months ago I had a thought in meditation which sent shivers up and down my spine and filled me with excitement and a kind of, oh, is that what it's all about kind of feeling. And the thought was this: I am the abyss which I feared. I am the abyss which I feared. For those of you who might not be familiar with that word, abyss means a giant dark hole in the universe or in the earth, which seems to have no bottom, which kind of threatens death. Freud talked about thanatos, this attraction, this death instinct. So there is something in us that is attracted to our own destruction, the destruction of the ego and the birth of the great self, or the peeling away, the revelation of the great self. And it is an accepted aspect of the spiritual path that to realize the great self, we can no longer cling to the small aspects of our ego, our securities, our attachments, our concepts of who we are and what reality is. And of course, the ego is afraid of its own destruction. And until we feel that we, in the period between which we see that our ego is facing death, and yet we are not yet confident and secure in our divinity, that is frightening. For me, in my early stages when I just became a Dada, I had to face many terrifying moments where, as I encountered that greatness, it's like swimming through a little shallow pool and suddenly going over the edge of the reef, and it just drops off into this abyss of the vast bottomless ocean. I had that experience once when I was skin diving, snorkeling on a little island with a coral reef. And for the first time in my life, I had swum out to a reef and then went past over the edge. And I thought, oh, what is that? It just dropped off, and all kinds of strange fish with little, weird shapes and things were kind of coming up. And I thought, what else is down there? So it's kind of, we have this fear, and it's very normal to encounter that. Often in the very early stages of doing meditation, as you close your eyes, you experiment with that idea of being surrounded by something vast and infinite. Suddenly there's a moment of fear, right? We were suffering from being trapped, feeling caught in a small space, feeling suffocated, and we wanted to get out of that and to expand, and we want freedom. We search for that, but the moment we get the first taste of that, we didn't realize it was so big, so frightening, so dark and unknown. So it's normal for that to come at some stage. And it takes courage. We have to take a step off. I remember once I wrote a series of poems about my challenge facing that sense of annihilation. The first one was not at all optimistic. Some of you may remember it's from a long time ago, and I shared it with you. Um, I would have played a little longer in the daisy fields of youth, but in the cold grey light of dawn, you offer me death or disgrace. So I felt at that time that to go on in my life, my path as I had chosen as a Dada, demanded this death of myself. You know what? I needed this, I needed that. I think it was mostly, attachment to having a companion or love. And that I could see that I was being asked to go into this unknown alone without anyone. And it felt literally like death. And yet if I stepped back, if I couldn't face that challenge, then I would have to leave. So, disgrace. So that was the choice. It was like, I felt like a soldier in the war who's being asked to go over the trench and face pretty much certain death. And if he doesn't go, he's a coward. He even could be shot for cowardice. So death or disgrace. So that's what I felt like at that time in my life. And then a little bit further on, I wrote the same poem, perhaps with a less dark, a seeing of something, a feeling not that on the other side of that jump into the abyss, that it was not death that was there, but something else was waiting, something which was calling me, which was exciting, which I wanted, and yet at the same time it was terrifying. So the poem I wrote at that time was this: here I stand again at the brink of the biggest cliff I've ever seen. To take that step is certain death. Have you no other dowry I could bring? So, dowry, for those of you who may not know that word, it's not that common. A dowry is when traditionally, when a young woman would be preparing and her relatives would help her prepare for her marriage, she would have some box in which she would collect some valuable things, and these would be a gift that she would bring to the marriage, so that this box with the dowry in it was something that helped her to get married. So here the meaning of the poem is that in my marriage to the divine, the dowry that is being asked of me is this surrender, this death, right? To jump off that cliff. That is the step I'm being asked to take in order to get the reward of the marriage. And then sometime later I wrote a third poem, which is further on after having taken that step, after having jumped off. And I must say that this is a cliff that one has to jump off many times. There are many things that one has to leave behind, and you may think that you have left everything behind, but yet again you face that cliff and there's something more you have to let go of. So this poem was called The Acrobat, and it goes like this. High above the netless ring, a ring without a net, like in a circus, right? High above the netless ring, she steps upon the wire. Hearts stop, fingers clench, all eyes cease to blink, but only her eyes see the golden form that holds her by the hand. That one poem just came very quickly, and that was expressing this feeling that, I stepped off, and as I took that risk, as I stepped into the openness, into the emptiness without a net, I felt beside me this golden form that nobody else could see, holding my hand. So that type of experience of, taking that risk, jumping off, and then one discovers divine help, grace in some form or another, which one would not discover if one held back out of fear. And that was many years ago, and one comes and goes on this journey, faces all different sorts of challenges. But then suddenly in meditation I had this thought, I am the abyss which I feared. And that was new, and that was really exciting. This great emptiness that stretches beyond the universe, unimaginably huge and dark and unknown. That very void is me. Now I can't say I'm, permanently established in that feeling, but what an excitement that was to have that feeling, even just a glimpse of it. And it's something that I repeat to myself in meditation when I'm imagining the vastness, and using, that step which our master suggested, that in order to expand, you should imagine yourself going out further and further and further into this ever-expanding emptiness. And, or into this ever-expanding ocean of light and divinity. So that vastness can be scary, but imagine if that very vastness itself, the entire void, is you. What an exciting thought. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Oh, and I was very excited to, I mentioned in the previous video that I had started reading Joseph Campbell, Hero with 1,000 Faces, the story of the hero's journey. And amazingly, one of these stories is this encounter with annihilation, with death, with the terrifying figure of the Father, the divine, with the void, and he uses that word. So this is, these amazing experiences that we have as we journey in meditation. Humanity has been going through them. It's, it is part of this journey. The journey has stages, and we all pass through them. Exciting. So, Namaskar. Have a good week.